Welcome to the BEASTwriter podcast. I'm your host, Ryan Sakamoto, and today we are doing something new. We are going live on Facebook, Twitter, and everything in between. So here we are doing it live with my man, Jerry Yang. If you don't follow him. His Twitter handle's right here. Jerry, thank you for coming on to the show. Really appreciate you coming on to this show. And how you doing today, man?
Yeah, doing good, man. Thanks for having me on. I'm excited, honored, and ready to talk sports. So that's kind of my game here.
All right. So let's go ahead and delve right into it. Again, if you don't follow Jerry Yang, go ahead and do that. His handle's right there. It's there for a reason. We all have it there for a reason, so you guys can follow us. Do yourself a solid, follow this guy, and support the Bay Area kid. All right, so let's go ahead and talk about J.J. Watt. I mean, that's the news that is basically being talked about all around the NFL. And what are your thoughts on J.J. Watt going to the Arizona Cardinals?
Man, crazy. Like, was there any rumors beforehand that he was going to even consider going to the Cardinals?
Absolutely not.
Not right. That's how it shows you that no one really knows anything until it happens, right? I think that's one big thing that we've learned with all these free agency, the talk of Watts and all this stuff. No one knows until it happens. Once it happens, then right? So that's why I don't feel like speculating too much on a lot of these things because a lot of it is hearsay. But bring it back to JJ Watt. That's a crazy contract. 2-year, $31 million with 23 guaranteed. Like Chandler Jones gonna want his due now too, right? The guy's getting paid 15 last season as his base, but he's due up for a contract renewal in 2022. So if the Cardinals can't pay him, guess what? You're going to lose that guy, right? So, but think of Chandler Jones and J.J. Watt on the same team. That's a scary front seven. So, what do you think about that, Ryan? Like that's crazy, right? Were you expecting that? I think you probably think he's leaving, but I'm excited for a front two. If I was the Cardinals, I would be excited to have both of them on there.
I would be excited, but I always look at things from a GM's perspective. I think that's why people like my analysis, because I really think and see it for what it really is. I mean, you get a guy like J.J. Watt who's on a 2-year, $31 million contract, $23 million in guaranteed. So a lot of this money is going to be front loaded. You cannot restructure this deal because it's a short-term deal. Mm-hmm. Furthermore, you can't change any roster bonus in the sign of a signing bonus. So by doing that, you're putting yourself in a financial strain because of the fact that Chandler Jones, as you pointed out, is due for a new contract. Now, whether that's in Arizona or someone else, or somewhere else, that remains to be seen. But one thing is for sure, the Arizona Cardinals are barely head above water when it comes to their salary cap health. And when they have to create cap space because they have to have and re-sign long-term gain free agents, namely Hassan Reddick, who had a career year last year, you weigh the two and say, okay, you want Chandler Jones, who's in the last year of his contract, wants a new deal. We just signed J.J. Watt, who's a 3-4 edge rusher, even though he's listed as an IDL, interior defensive lineman. And then you extend Hassan Reddick for the foreseeable future because that's your future. If you don't, and you do it the other way around where you try to re-sign Chandler Jones, now you're doing yourself a disservice because you already invested so much money into J.J. Watt. Keeping J.J. Watt and Chandler Jones and Hassan Reddick is just not possible, especially with the salary cap dropping from 198.2 to 180. So you have to look at it for what it's worth, not just this year, but the next 2, 3, 4, 5 years down the road. And if I'm Steve Keim, I'm looking at it from a financial standpoint that it makes much more sense to roll with Hassan Reddick than it is to re-sign Chandler Jones.
I see it differently, though, because they're saving money on Patrick Peterson as well, right? Patrick Peterson's done with that team. And Hassan Reddick, I think signing J.J. Watt tells me that Hassan Reddick's probably out. Right?
Hassan Reddick is out. Wow.
I think so. I think he's done, right?
Wow.
In my opinion, he's done. I think by signing J.J. Watt, they're saying, hey, this is going to be the new model of our team now is going to be Chandler Jones and J.J. Watt. This is the highlight of our defense. Patrick Peterson, sorry, you're gone. Hassan Reddick, you know what? We loved you, but we made our decision. So I think the question now we have to look at is, where's Hassan Reddick going to go? I think Hassan Reddick's going to be pretty pissed about this signing. Right? Like he can't be happy at all, I think. So in my opinion, but we'll see. But I that's just my personal thinking is that I think JJ Watt is gonna make a huge splash, but I think it comes with a lot of risk, right? He's gonna be 32 going into this season. He played all 16 games last season, but the season before he got injured of playing only 8 games. He's has a really big history of injuries. Like I think he tore a pec as well, right? Just like what Quan Alexander did. So are you really gonna bank on this guy for the next 2 years and beyond? Or like you said, you have Hassan Reddick already. That's why I think no one had JJ Watt on the radar because they thought Hassan Reddick was going to be the guy. And then right now, I think by signing JJ Watt, they're telling you otherwise. And I think Hassan Reddick's out.
It's going to be interesting because at the end of the day, like I said, you make a great point there. And obviously, I value your analysis as I do everyone because I think everyone has a voice just because I have a platform. But getting back to Hassan Reddick or Chandler Jones, I'm just looking at it from a GM perspective, especially when you try to manipulate the cap long term, because Steve Keim already went on record last week saying that he's not sure if Chandler Jones is going to be re-signed beyond next season. So to that fact, do you want to keep Chandler Jones playing in the last year of his contract, knowing that you're going to be dishing out a high 2021 cap number when you really don't have him next year? Are the Cardinals one or two players from actually getting to the Super Bowl or actually being Super Bowl contenders? I would argue they are not. Their offensive line is weak sauce, just like the Seattle Seahawks in the NFC West. And let's tell it like it is, man. Like you have these certain pieces on the back end, especially at boundary cornerback, when you have Dre Kirkpatrick being a free agent, Patrick Peterson being a free agent, Robert Alford, who has done absolutely nothing since coming from the Atlanta Falcons. You drop him, you save the team $7.5 million in cap savings. So financially, it makes zero sense, in my opinion, to let Chandler Jones play out in the last year of contract when you can actually use that money in those cap savings by saving 15.5 and roll it over into Hassan Reddick's contract moving forward. Now, again, you make a great point because the message is somewhat unclear now because they did sign JJ Watt and he does come with red flags. He missed 32 games in the last 5 years, which is crucial, right? But at the end of the day, if you're really looking at it for what it's worth, they already signed based on you want to look at future behavior, you base it on past behavior. And when you get a guy from the Buffalo Bills, like defensive end Jordan Phillips, last year in free agent, huge free agent signing, one of the most underrated free agent signings in my book. You have him anchor one side, then you have JJ Watt anchoring the other. Well, that just creates so much more problems for the offensive line as a whole. And then you combine that with the young Hassan Reddick. And maybe if you don't get a Chandler Jones, right, or if you let him walk, you can use that money and maybe find someone in the upcoming draft. Now, this edge draft class is also weak. So there's a lot of moving parts in play, but at the end of the day, I think the smarter play is to re-sign Hassan Reddick, let Chandler Jones walk, and rebuild moving forward. Because, like I said, unless you're one or two players away, there's no need to re-sign Chandler Jones or keep him under contract for 1 year, knowing that you're not going to re-sign him for the long term.
But they do save some cap space, right? They're going to have Patrick Peterson off the books. They're going to have Larry Fitzgerald off the books. Kenyon Drake is off the books as well. They do have some flexibility to potentially save both, but then are you really going to roll with Chase Edmonds at running back? I think that's a big question. I think they would. I would. Right? I think Chase Edmonds actually showed a lot last season. I know he got injured as well, with Kenyon Drake being ineffective at the red zone. So at least you save some cap money to potentially keep those guys as well. Maybe they go that direction, but I think you're probably right. They probably have to decide between Chandler Jones and Hassan. And for me personally, I still think Hassan's out, but we'll see.
That's good. Yeah. And again, this has a direct impact, and that's why I love covering all 32 NFL teams, because this has a direct impact on what the Cardinals do at number 16. With the 16th pick overall, they're in a very good position because a lot of these quarterbacks are going to get pushed up the draft board because a lot of these teams are going to be vying and scrambling for that quarterback. And when those top 3 quarterbacks go off the board, obviously, Deshaun Watson, everything's still up in the air. We don't know if the New York Jets are going to make a play for him because they hold 2 first-round draft picks. So that's really going to set the board at the top of the draft based on draft position, but based on where the Cardinals are sitting at, currently at number 16. You look at their needs and what might be available. I look at a guy like J.C. Horn from South Carolina, and I look at Najee Harris and Travis Etienne. So you pointed out great points as to what they would do with whether keeping Edmonds or moving on. I think at number 16, you can get a guy like Travis Etienne and Najee Harris based on my current mock draft and where I see their value in being selected, obviously Najee Harris, my number 4 ranked player on my big board, but getting him right before the Miami Dolphins, who pick at number 18, and that's where the run on quarterbacks, or excuse me, the run on running backs is likely to be hit, is around the 18 to 25 range, because you have teams like the Pittsburgh Steelers at 24, and you have the Green Bay Packers shortly behind them, and some of these other teams that are in position to get a running back. At 16, it's a match made in heaven where you don't have to trade up draft capital to get the guy and get that workhorse running back, because obviously Kenyon Drake is not the answer. I think you roll with a guy like Najee Harris or Travis Etienne.
Let me ask you, do you like any cornerbacks at number 16? Because they're losing Patrick Peterson. That's a big part of their secondary. So
I mean, Patrick Surtain's obviously my cornerback 1. I think he's the most fundamentally sound cornerback in this draft, similar to what Ahmed Plummer brought to the table back in 2000 out of the Ohio State University. So based on being a sound technician, I really love what Patrick Surtain Jr. brings to the table. However, he's going to be long gone by the 16th pick anyways. I don't see him getting out of the top 12. So with that being said, I look at a guy like J.C. Horn. Now, a lot of people have Caleb Farley out of Virginia Tech ranked higher. I do not. And the people who have been following me since I started covering the NFL media, I have the same gut feeling that I had back in 2014 when people were saying Justin Gilbert was the real deal. And I said, no, he's not. I said, you want a real deal cornerback? Jason Verrett. And then you can check the Twitter and YouTube receipts, man. Everything speaks for itself. So I have the same gut feeling when it comes to the cornerback position this year. Now watch me be wrong, but I look at a guy like J.C. Horn who just fits the scheme and fits what NFL teams want in a boundary cornerback more so than Caleb Farley's intangibles.
Okay. No, it sounds good. Yeah, I think I agree with you. I really think the position need for the Cardinals is going to be at the cornerback spot and the running back spot, right? That's going to be their top 2 need. I feel like they should go for a cornerback before they go for a running back, mainly because you have so many free agent running backs out there that, and you have Chase Edmonds out there, right? And
you love Chase Edmonds. Oh my gosh, you keep talking.
I think he's good. I think he's good, man. I think he can be a number 1, but he's not going to be an every down back. And you put someone that can complement him, like Adrian Peterson or maybe even Frank Gore, right? This would be his backup back. I think they'll give him a chance to shine. Yeah.
All right. All right. Well, that's a great point. Let's move on to what 49ers fans want to hear. And if you're leaving comments, we'll go ahead and answer those questions too. Jerry would be happy to answer those. I'm going to let him lead this show. Jerry, this is your show. This is Tang Mondays. His last name is Tang, so I call it Tang Mondays. So get your Tang.
It's actually Yang. It's Yang, but
Yang.
You mixed me up with my co-host, so Mike I have a co-host.
My fault. Jerry Yang, Mike Tang.
Yeah, we run a sports podcast, so that's why
you need to switch your show to the Yang and Tang show.
The Yang and Tang show. I know we should, right?
There you go, man.
That's a good one.
All right, let's go ahead and talk about Teddy Bridgewater's. Yeah, let's talk about Teddy Bridgewater.
I don't know, man. I don't know if he's as good, going to be as good, or be better rather than Jimmy G. And why aren't the Panthers going to roll with him, right? I think the Panthers are in need of a quarterback right now. It's not like they have someone better. So there's definitely some red flags, in my opinion, for Teddy Bridgewater. And I did listen to a show earlier about Teddy Bridgewater. I think you make a lot of good points there. And I mean, I just don't buy it, right? I just don't buy Teddy Bridgewater ever being that great. I think when he played for the Saints, he had the benefit of a great offensive line there and a great scheme, right? And then obviously 49ers don't have a good offensive line. We have to sign Trent Williams in order to at least look decent. And I see a comment here talking about what's new with Trent Williams. I think the answer is nothing right now, right? We're still waiting and seeing what happens. I do think they sign him back. And if they sign Trent Williams, it's going to set off a domino effect of other signings, right? And Teddy Bridgewater, I would rather consider Sam Darnold before I consider.
Ooh, I like it.
I like it. I know it's a hot take probably, but that's my answer to that. I just don't buy it, right? I just don't think Teddy Bridgewater, and I'm a pretty big fantasy football player as well, right? I follow fantasy football. I'm in like multiple leagues in multiple seasons, and Teddy Bridgewater, he wasn't a great fantasy quarterback, and sometimes that translates to what's on the field as well. Right, I know they didn't have the luxury of having Christian McCaffrey with the Panthers this season, I think that's what brought Teddy Bridgewater's stock up a little bit, is because everyone's perceiving Teddy Bridgewater doing decent without having Christian McCaffrey there, right? But in reality, I think Mike Davis did pretty well. Mike Davis actually ran that offense. Obviously he's no Christian McCaffrey, but I didn't see anything in Teddy Bridgewater that made me say, okay, he's the difference maker now.
Right.
Do you agree with that?
Yeah, you hit it on the nail. When I think you talk about Teddy Bridgewater and what he actually brings to the table, you look at his statistics, right? Statistically, he wasn't horrible, right? He had a 69.1% completion rate. He had 3,733 passing yards. He had 15 touchdowns against 11 interceptions. Those are modest numbers. Now, are they great numbers? Absolutely not. However, when you add those numbers all together, it comes up with a 92.1 passer rating. And the question you have to tell yourself is, if you were to bring in a quarterback like Teddy Bridgewater to San Francisco, is that a big enough upgrade, or is it an upgrade at all? Because when you bring in a quarterback like that, especially when people talk about him being a backup, what kind of locker room dynamic does that set when if you're Jimmy Garoppolo and knowing like, hey man, I have to look over my shoulder. Now I get iron sharpens iron, but every day you have to constantly wake up in the morning and hear these news. And we don't even know when this report came out. We don't even know when the actual call took place. Was it before was it before all these players got picked up, like Carson Wentz, and Deshaun Watson not getting traded? So we don't know what's going on there. Mm-hmm. And then Matthew Stafford getting traded. So was this after the fact, or was it during that process that they actually made a phone call to Teddy Bridgewater? Because when you actually break it down, we don't know the timeline of when that call took place. And that's going to be very crucial, because if it's after the fact or before the fact, that's when it really matters on whether we're making sense of this at all, like whether it's worth it or not.
Yeah, I don't think you would have Teddy Bridgewater and Jimmy G on the same team, right? I think if you have to trade for Teddy Bridgewater, I think you're giving up Jimmy G in that trade. What else would you give up? I think that's the question, right? Or maybe what else you get back, right? Because Jimmy G has a higher salary, so you're going to get maybe a draft pick back. I think that would be the only benefits, maybe having more draft picks. But, like you said, when was this rumor talked about? We don't know, right? Just like the JJ Watt thing, we just didn't know. And then we'll find out when it happens. But based on past experience, I don't see John Lynch making like this trade, right? So, and I don't see them both on the same roster. There's no way, like you said, there's a conflict of egos, conflict of captain, right? Like your quarterback iron sharpens iron, but great. But really, after all these talks, you think Jimmy G really still wants to be there? It's like you said, visiting the in-laws, right?
Yeah, it's like if you guys keep up with my podcast, I keep it 100. It's like it's like going to the in-laws house and they don't like you, bro. Like every time the holidays roll around, Thanksgiving, Merry Christmas, and you walk in that front door and you have to save face because your ass know that they're trying to tell your wife to leave your butt. So it's like at the end of the day, man, how does Jimmy G Garoppolo feel when he steps inside that locker room, bro? Like he has to be cool and play it cool because that's a professional route to go. But at the end of the day, how can you really succeed at the highest level, knowing the back of your mind all these things that they don't really want you? They don't want you.
My counter to your in-law analogy is if Jimmy G is serious about the relationship, he's going to win a Super Bowl, then I think the in-laws will love him, right?
Yeah, but that's a toxic
environment.
In an environment that you do not want to you should not take that lightly. Being inside that Foreigners locker room myself, I can tell you, players are I still talk to the DeForest Buckner trade because I still keep in touch with some of the players and the coaches. And I will tell you right now, they are shook, surprised, and shocked that move was happening. And till this day, we don't know what's going on with Fred Warner, but that's a different story. Yeah. And that's one of the reasons why Fred Warner's dad follows my stuff, likes all my stuff, because I hold it. Whatever I say, it's true. Like it comes true, bro. Like why would I say clickbait? I don't. Like whatever I say, it usually turns out to be true. And now you guys know why. But at the end of the day, it's almost like this, bro. Like I tell you straight up, like the locker room dynamic is so important. When you have a mix of certain players between young and new and bringing in veteran talent, how people perceive those players when they walk into that locker room is going to cause rift, because if there's two alpha males
Yep.
And let me tell you, there's more alpha males in any locker room in general, because you wouldn't get to the NFL level if you weren't an alpha male and didn't have that mentality. What I'm saying is there are certain people that you gravitate toward as leaders in the locker room. And when someone gravitates toward Jimmy Garoppolo and then you bring in a guy like, let's say, Teddy Bridgewater, and then now he's off, but then let's say they're not sold on Teddy Bridgewater and then trade up in the draft to get a quarterback that we're going to talk about right now, what kind of message does that send to Teddy Bridgewater?
Let me ask
and
you
what if
something.
people like Teddy Bridgewater after this year, and he's the entrenched starter as a stopgap, bridge gap quarterback?
So, Ryan, let me jump in real quick. Let me ask you real quick. You were in the locker room when Alex Smith and Kaepernick were in the same locker room, right?
Mm-hmm.
How was that dynamic? Because I would see some parallels in this in some ways, right? Because you do have Alex Smith, who was the starter at the time, and then you have Kaepernick, who was drafted by Harbaugh. And
right.
How was this locker room situation then? I think there's some parallels to that, right? The iron sharpened iron there.
Exactly. And that's why I put it out in my earlier podcast. I mean, it goes back even before that, right? It goes back to the Montana Steve Young days, right? And on that scale, there was some rift there between who the quarterback should be. People are very loyal to certain players, especially when it comes to their quarterback. When I say their quarterback, they will live and die for that specific quarterback. The room was split when it came to Montana or Steve Young, right? Now, I don't know the percentage, but it was split, and it's been well documented. Same thing with Alex Smith and Colin Kaepernick. Now, ultimately, those decisions were made, right? The 49ers went with Steve Young at the end of the deal, right? Kansas City Chiefs got Joe Montana, and then Alex Smith goes off to the Kansas City Chiefs, ironically, and then they kept Colin Kaepernick. Now, where we're sitting at with Jimmy Garoppolo, whoever they bring in, that's going to cause rift if they don't remove Jimmy Garoppolo from the equation, because by default, you got to remember these players were in the Super Bowl just 2 years removed from the Super Bowl with Jimmy Garoppolo as a starting quarterback. And I don't care what people say, and it holds true. Yes, the strong running game backed up by a strong defense is what got him there. Absolutely. Jimmy Garoppolo is just driving the Ferrari. But at the end of the day, when you have players like George Kittle who vouch for him, right? He's the team leader. That's not the face of the franchise. When you have a guy like that who vouches for Jimmy Garoppolo, you have to take that into account. And you don't think the other players are going to gravitate? Oh man, well, George Kittle likes this guy. Maybe I believe in him, right? Because it starts at the top, right? Leadership starts from the top, and anytime you have some kind of locker room friction or dynamic where it's kind of like, oh gosh, that's just bad. That's just all bad. And how you deal with that locker room dynamic is solely based on the team captains inside that locker room. You don't have DeForest Buckner there anymore. You're not going to have Richard Sherman there anymore. You don't have Robert Saleh there anymore. Joe Staley retired. You're talking about the leaders on this football team who are no longer with the team. So to say that this team is the same or they're one or two pieces away from getting back to the Super Bowl, I'm not saying they're not, but I would be cautioned about that, because again, this is a vastly different team. And then you look at the front office, peel back another layer of the onion to really get to the core. Martin Mayhew is not on the team anymore. He was the vice president of player personnel or something like that, right? Then he moves on to Washington and becomes the team's GM. So what does that leave him? It's so many missing parts that they have to kind of recreate, and it's going to be interesting how 2021 plays out.
Yeah, and I'm looking at the comments here of our viewers. So they're agreeing with us, right? They said, "Great point. We don't need the timeline." So thank you, Kim Farson. Chad Bay said Tebby is an upgrade, a lateral move at best. So thank you, Chad. I agree with that too. And then Jonathan K28 says Bridgewater talks were definitely after the leaked Stafford offer. So I think I agree with them too. So those are some good points, right?
Oh, I didn't know. I'm just playing with this. I'm going live, so I'm like trying to show everybody. So I apologize.
Don't show everybody. You don't have to show everybody. I think, and then you can leave it on Miranda Lee. I think she or Miranda. Sorry, I'm butchering that person's name, but that person loved the comparison of the in-laws. I think we can leave that one on there.
All right, let's just go down the list. Let's talk about what people want to talk about, right? Let's talk about Trent Williams, right? Let's go ahead and talk about Trent Williams. Let's go ahead and do that. Go ahead.
Yeah, I just don't think anything happened with Trent Williams. You mentioned a lot of locker room leaders. I don't see Trent Williams being that guy right now. Is he going to be the guy once he gets a big contract? Maybe. But this last season, he hasn't shown it. He's shown himself as just kind of a hitman that came in for one season. And he was good, right? He made the Pro Bowl. He's going to be a good player. But at what cost, right? Like, are you gonna? What else do you lose when you sign Trent Williams? And like I mentioned, there's a ripple effect once you sign Trent Williams, right? Then there's going to be other guys that we want to keep, like Kerry Hyder or even Juszczyk, right? Like Kyle Juszczyk, we might not be able to sign back because we're going to get Trent Williams. There's just a lot of considerations that he's going to be really expensive out there. And, if we don't go with Trent Williams, who else will go out there? I think there's maybe a few left tackle options in the draft, but at number 12, is there really going to be a good guy out there? Maybe that's a question for you, BEASTwriter, because you're like, following the draft a lot closer than me, especially on left tackle, right? But I just don't see a super replacement, but I could be missing some few pieces out there. And I just don't see Trent Williams as a leader, right? That's the part that I'm not sold on Trent Williams. And Patrick Silva asked, "What's new with Trent Williams?" Nothing right now. If we would have heard something if Trent Williams got re-signed, and I think John is dragging his feet a little bit on this signing, and which tells me he's kind of thinking about it, but he's not sold, right?
If you really read between the lines, and this is why I mean, maybe because I've covered the team for so many years, continue to cover the team, but I know John and Kyle very well, and you have to be able to read between the lines and not take everything at face value. What I mean by that is anytime a player, now people are going to be on this, but anytime someone says something like they pick up a player, they draft a player, look at the transcripts, keep the transcripts of what was said, keep the dialogue, and you will find tendencies in what they're saying. When it came to Trent Williams, and I remember this, they knew he was going to get it on a rental player. He knew he was getting a rental player because when he was asked, are you going to extend him? He's like, oh, we're going to kind of see and let it play out as it should. We'll worry about that that's when I said I'm pumping up on a podcast, bro. I'm going to talk about this and how he might be a 1-year rental because no one's going to report this. And I'm going to say odds are he's going to be a 1-year rental, just like Emmanuel Sanders was a half-year rental. And then he mortgaged the future by giving up draft capital, third-round picks in return. And now you're mortgaging your future for rental players who may or may not be there after one season. That's something that is now coming to fruition for the second time and that's why I'm saying, should John Lynch be on the hot seat? Not just because of that. Maybe the DeForest Buckner deal. Maybe they don't re-sign Fred Warner. We don't know what's going on there. Yep. Why is GM John Lynch dragging his feet when it comes to re-signing all-pro talent? That's something that needs to be talked about because at the end of the day, you keep your homegrown all-pro talent. Now, of course, it comes with buyer's remorse because you want to look at the lifelong of the contract and how it's set up and how it's structured. But do you really think DeForest Buckner and Fred Warner would accept anything less than a front-loaded deal? Absolutely not. Because if you accept anything less than a front-loaded deal, you're banking on them. You're banking on yourself, right? So you already proven yourself that you know what they're getting. They're getting an all-pro player best at my position. Yeah. What you get with these other long-term contracts that were struck, I'm not going to put any names out there, but they were backloaded, right? These $85 million were backloaded. Why? Because these players weren't consistent enough early on in the career that the 49ers were banking in case they don't add up to what their value is, they can always wipe their hands clean after 2 or 3 years down the road. Not Fred Warner, not DeForest Buckner, because you know what you're getting in return. Plain and simple.
Simple. And we talked about this online. Adam Peters got promoted. So to me, I think he is on the hot seat, right? I think John Lynch is on the hot seat. If Adam Peters is beating on the door, I think we go another season like the last season we had where we missed the playoffs and we had a bunch of people that didn't get re-signed. I don't see John Lynch playing out his contract. And I think it's going to be a good thing. I mean, you made a good point on one of your podcasts. In the NFC West, John Lynch is the worst GM, right? He's the worst GM in the NFC West. And look at what the Cardinals are doing. Look at what LA Rams are doing. They're making a lot of big moves right now. And so our division's got a lot tougher, I think. So what else is next, right? Like you said, I think if they don't sign Fred Warner, it's going to be like DeForest Buckner leaving, but worse, right?
I don't I don't think he's the worst GM in the NFC West. I think when I put that podcast out there, I say he's the worst GM when it comes to getting defensive front seven players in free agency. That's what he's the worst at. He's also high up there when it comes to missing on his top two picks in the upcoming draft. I mean, if you look aside from 2019, he didn't do very well, right? 2017, he took Solomon Thomas and then rolled the dice on Reuben Foster when I said they should have took who? Jamal Adams, and then they should have got Alvin Kamara at number 34. Then in 2018, I said they should have traded up one spot, get Roquan Smith. What did they do? This is all before the draft. And he goes ahead and reaches for right tackle Mike McGlinchey at number 9, right? I then asked him in this pre-draft presser leading up into the draft because I want to kind of see his take on it. And I said, how many Pro Bowl players do you have in that draft? And I believe he said the number was around, I think he said 12 or 15. And so I was like, okay, well, obviously he thinks he's getting a Pro Bowl player at 9 because why would you lie about the number when you draft number 9 overall? Okay, cool story. Then you go to 2019. He hits it with Deebo Samuel and Nick Bosa on back-to-back picks. I said in my pre-draft analysis, that's the play. He obviously did it. Good job to John Lynch for listening to me. Not like he listens to me, but I'm just saying. And then in 2020, we all saw how he reverted back, reaching for Javon Kinlaw when he should have just stuck at 13 and took Tristan Wirfs instead of letting him go to the Tampa Bay Bucks. Now, people tend to forget, if you watch my earlier podcast, you would know what I'm about to say, is the only reason he made that move, trading back one spot, is because he needed to recoup draft capital from the half-year rental with Emmanuel Sanders. Again, you connect the dots, you follow me, man, I will show you the way, bro. I will show you exactly what I'm talking about, and everything holds true because it all makes sense in the end.
I really like what you say about him drafting for need versus for value, right? He's really devaluing all those picks by doing that. And there's a lot of examples of it, like Solomon Thomas, comes to mind. He's a big one. And, I think we brought in John Lynch because he's supposed to be a defensive-minded GM. We have Kyle Shanahan running the offense. He's obviously one of the best head coaches, the best offensive minds. And we wanted someone strong on the defensive end, so that's why we picked John Lynch, who is a Hall of Fame defensive player. But so far, he's missing a lot on the defensive side. I mean, look at D Ford, right? He's great, but how about value to the contract that we got? There's no value there, right? That was a horrible signing that we're still living with.
Keep going.
I think everyone knows, right, that these are really bad picks and bad moves that have been made. Like what's next? Like Eric Armstead, that's another person that we re-signed over Buckner. Like why, right? That's a really bad signing too. So the list goes on, right? I guess end of the day, the list goes on. He did find a few gems. I'll give him credit for that. Like Jason Verrett, obviously, is a gem that he found, right?
Absolutely.
Drafting DJ Jones was great. K1 Williams, great, right? So there's a few guys I think he did pick up that are panning out. I mean, even Jordan Willis, I would say, is good. But then when you put the pressure on him to draft a top defensive player, I guess my best advice to him is let's look outside of the Pac-12, right? I think he's drafting a lot in the Pac-12, and there's some bias, I feel like, when it comes to the Pac-12 conference. I know he's from there, right? So maybe that's where the bias came from. But, has the Pac-12 really been known as a defensive juggernaut? No, right?
Right.
So I just feel like there's a lot of unanswered questions there. And I'm looking at some of the comments, like people are saying, John Lynch and Kyle Lynch don't care about the Niners. They know each other's teams well. And I don't agree with that, right? So that one. But so do you want to answer some of the fans' questions?
Yeah, so I'm just going to go ahead and lead this. So Jonathan K28 says, that JJ play defensive end or defensive tackle this coming season? He strictly plays in a 334 base. He's going to be two gapping, so he's lined up technically at defensive end, although it's considered the IDL, interior defensive line. So he's going to be lined up along the interior on the offensive line or defensive line, excuse me. But a 3-4 defensive end is typically the technique he's playing is going to be probably a 4-man or a 4 technique, basically playing head up on the tackle. All right, so let's move on.
I think there's some benefits of that JJ Watt's perspective. Like think about being in a contender,
right?
Check, right. The big contract, check.
Right.
And he wanted to keep the income tax part. People underestimate that part. If he comes to Santa Clara, he's going to be taxed like crazy here, right? Arizona, Texas, no income tax, so he's keeping that, right? So I think there's a lot of benefits that we're not seeing there that I think makes sense from a JJ Watt perspective. So.
Good point. All right, so we have David Zook says, any updates on Juice? Nope, there's no updates on Juice. We're going to move on because there's no updates on Juice. Our 49ers is going to trade for Teddy. I think we already talked about that. Thank you for your comment, D. Wade. Hopefully you found our analysis of use. Let's move on. Congrats on the SI. Oh, thank you, Jonathan. I appreciate it.
Congratulations. I read your first article. It was great, Ryan. So just anyone that hasn't read it, go out there. SI article. It was legit, man. It was a great analysis. So I enjoyed it. Keep it coming.
Thank you. Thank you. All right. So D Wade says, if Watson gets traded, where will he go? Ooh, that's a good one. I believe you want to go first. I know why. I know why I'm going with this. I'm going to say if Watson gets traded, and again, if you guys follow my earlier podcast, the news that he came out that he was intrigued by the 49ers, I said that weeks before that he was intrigued. But
Miami, right? Come on. It has to be Miami. It has to be Miami. If he wants to go somewhere, it's going to be taking his talents to South Beach, right?
I would say Miami or New York are the front runners. And the reason I say that is because although Deshaun Watson would have to restart under a new regime, new team, new coach, Robert Saleh, what he's building there is so crucial to whoever that quarterback is that I don't think Robert Saleh would not, the GM over there, I don't think they would not make this move. Joe Douglas is a great scout when he was with the Baltimore Ravens and is a great GM with the New York Jets.
Yeah.
I wouldn't be surprised if he pulled the trigger on Deshaun Watson, giving up they picked number 22 and 23, and then get Deshaun Watson while giving up draft capital and possibly a couple players. Now, the problem with that is the Jets don't have very many pieces you can give up. I mean, the only logical piece you can really give up back to the Houston Texans for making this deal would be Quentin Williams, and why would you do that? So
they have a number 2 pick still, right? Don't
they have the number 2 and number 23, so I think they would have to dump those picks back to Nick Caserio in order for him to even consider trading the franchise quarterback. But Dolphins are a logical choice.
If I was a Jets, I would consider making the move because I'm not sold on Justin Fields, and I think Justin Fields will probably have to go number 2, him or Zach Wilson, right? I just don't. Okay, so I think we talked about this, but Ohio State quarterbacks never pans out, right? I don't know. I just can't think of the last Ohio State quarterback that I said was really good that made it well, right? And think about it this way, right? The new head coach of Jacksonville is Urban Myers. Who was his quarterback in college? Justin Fields. Why is he not taking him if he was so good? Because everyone knows Trevor Lawrence is way better, right?
Right.
So is he really worth number 2 pick? I don't know, man. I think Zach Wilson, we can consider it, but I think there's a big drop off after Trevor Lawrence. And if I was Saleh, I would consider the trade just so that I won't have to make that the whole starting of his head coaching career on a rookie, right?
Right. Well, all right. Mariah just says, hi, what's up, fam? What's up, Mariah? Mariah is one of my most loyal followers on YouTube. She comments, gives me love on Twitter. For those who don't know, I'm just going to put this out there. I am not verified on Twitter anymore. What happened is I made the crucial error of apparently the handle has a link to the verification. So I had BEASTwriter _ I switched it to BEASTwriter, and now I switched it back to BEASTwriter _ after doing some research on why I lost the badge. And here we are today. So people are saying, is that really you? I'm like, yes, it's me.
It's me.
Like, how do you lose your badge? I was like, well, if you look at what people are commenting, it was at BEASTwriter because I changed it and that prompted badge removal. So now we're just kind of like in limbo on that. But hopefully I get it back sooner or later. Working on that. But
the fans should retweet maybe to Twitter to try to help you get it back.
What?
Right?
We tried this.
All the fan support will help, I think.
Oh, I know. I'm pretty sure I'll get it back. I'm not concerned about not getting it back. But I think it's funny because everyone's talking about it. All right, so let's go ahead and move on. Jonathan K28 says 12 overall pick and a future second for 23-34 and Sam Darnold. Trade Jimmy and a 4 to New England for Stephon Gilmore, re-sign Trent Williams and Jason Verrett. Zaven 23 get Zaven Collins, Wyatt Davis, and Jason. Wow, this guy's has
some that's
analysis, man.
Yeah.
Jonathan K28 is on it, bro.
My answer is yes. Do it, right? No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah, there's a lot of moving parts there, but no,
That's
he
a
makes
lot of
great
moving
points.
parts. But
All
I
right,
like
let's
the
move
way he
on.
thinks, right? So maybe after the show, you can comment on that for him. If he leaves
Yeah.
a comment on the episode, we'll get back to him on that one.
49ers need Mike Romano. Thank you for tuning in. 49ers need to draft a cornerback and re-sign Jason Verrett. Move Mosley to the slot. Make Juice and Trent a priority and let Tart walk. I like that, man. I think that's the play.
do.
I think you draft a cornerback at 16, or excuse me, at 12, and take JC Horn. Or if you can move back from that spot, pick up Najee Harris, my draft crush, or JC Horn, whatever you want to do. Re-sign Jason Verrett is a huge priority. Keep him in the Bay. And then you have 2 boundary cornerbacks for the foreseeable future. And Mosley moving to the slot would be a smart play because, again, you don't want too many changing parts, but you got to remember any cornerback that plays the slot position, it's more, how do I say that? It's harder to play the slot than it is to play boundary because, again, you don't have the extra defender using the sideline as your friend. Furthermore, you have to know your spacing because you need to know exactly where your help is and where your help isn't. And by playing in such a confined space when you're in the slot position, you really need to know and be aware of where your teammates are so you don't bump into them on those rubbing crossing routes. So that's something that I would be cautious of, and that's going to be a learning curve for Emmanuel Mosley, but I would definitely give him the opportunity because he has shown to be a nice cornerback at boundary. All right. So
the only part I would agree with is letting Tart walk. I'm not sure if I want to lose Tart, right? I thought when healthy, Tart's great. Right, but
Tart's
I
my
guess
boy, dude. I love Tart.
Yeah,
like, personally, I love him. I mean, personally and on the field, I'm biased, but
no, he's an
awesome.
explosive player. I think he's a playmaker. He can definitely make a difference. I think the problem is health issues, right? Being explosive player, the way he plays, he's going to go 110% on every play, and that could result in injury. So, I guess let me ask you a side question. Do you think Ahkello Witherspoon's done with us at this point, or do we sign him back for like a really short contract, or does he go to the Jets?
I mean, the Jets are a possibility. I know people are going to be like, dang, dude, what the heck are you saying, bro? I like Ahkello Witherspoon, bro. I don't know. There's something about him. I don't know if it's his swagger. I don't know if it's height, weight, speed.
He has the size, right? He
like
looks like a good player. He looks like a guy who will be good.
Here's the thing. When you're scouting a player, you look at what's called the critical factors, right? The critical factors and what can he do and what can't he do, right? One of my mentors told me, who's a scout, he said, look, you don't focus too much on what they can't do. You focus on what they can do because the other stuff that they don't teach you in college can be coached up. So the critical factors play a role. When you look at Ahkello Witherspoon, he led the nation in pass breakups coming out of college. Okay. Yep. You don't do that by accident. I don't care what division you play in. I don't care if it's Division 1A, Division 2A, Division 3. I don't care. That's production. And something that you can't deny is production. The thing that comes down with Ahkello Witherspoon that I have problems with is consistency. Can he be consistent game in and game out? That's the thing that we all need to see more of. And he has lapses of showing this Pro Bowl talent, unbelievably talented player. Like, my gosh, this guy is a true shutdown corner. And then the next week he gets blown for 150 receiving yards. And then you have to guess yourself, well, was it really his fault? When you break down the shell of the coverage, yes, it's his fault. Okay, then why the discrepancy? Why is it that one player on one team and then he goes up against a similar player on a different team and the results don't add up? So it's just interesting for me to see, but I really, really like Ahkello Witherspoon. I think they should give him another shot because at the end of the day, what do you have to lose? You cannot have too many good cornerbacks, especially in a pass-happy NFL.
And he was a second-round pick, right? So this is like another artifact to John Lynch's pick resume that so far hasn't panned out. But I think what people forget is in 2019, he actually played really good during the regular season. He was coming up. He was showing a lot of progress. It was not until the playoffs where they had to bench him. And that's when people started hating on them. And then last season, I think he was a little bit banged up and didn't show up, right? So I agree with you. I think we should give him another chance, but not for big bucks. It has to be the right contract, and it has to be short term, I think.
Right. All right, so let's move on. Let's go ahead and answer some of these people's questions. Everyone wants to talk about Trent Williams, bro. Everyone's talking about Trent Williams right now. We have to go with Trent Williams. This guy,
Trent Williams.
So here, I'm gonna pull this up, man. This guy says, Jonathan K28 says the 49ers will give Trent Williams 3 years, $60 million. Oh my gosh, that's a lot of money.
I do love Alex Mack. So from this question,
I know you like Alex Mack. We'll talk about that right now. Go ahead and bring your analysis on Alex Mack's Return of the Mack, and why he makes sense.
The Return of the Mack.
49ers. Mark Morrison, here we go.
So what's the biggest problem in O-line right now for the Niners? Is it really left tackle? No, it's a center position, right? We can clown on McClinchy all we want, but we haven't had a good center the last 2 seasons, I feel like. And Alex Mack, Pro Bowler, played in Atlanta, which is a similar system as Kyle. Played under Kyle as well, right? 6-time Pro Bowler. I think the concern is that he did get a concussion last season, and he had some COVID issues and all this stuff. I think that's why he is available. He's a free agent. The last contract he got was $8 million. $8 million base salary, but it was a 5-year, $45 million deal. So that's also a concern. That's the top dollar. But compare him to Weston Richburg, right? I think this is definitely an upgrade, at least for 2 years. I think we can probably get this guy for at least 2 years. And then once more draft capital comes our way, hopefully, more maybe not. But, we can probably consider drafting a center. But I think center position is key right now.
Right.
And I agree with you. He's a leader in the locker room, right? So the commenter, it was Jonathan again, right? That commented that. I do agree with you that Alex Mack is a leader in the locker room, but I don't know if we want to replace Trent Williams as the leader there if we're giving Trent Williams all that money based on his scenario. So
interesting, man. So a lot of people are now talking about Solomon Thomas. Obviously, people are saying he's a bust. And I'll be honest,
is he done with us, or do you think he stays?
I think he's gone. Anytime you don't pick up the guy's 5th-year option, that's usually means they're not really high on you, and they would rather develop someone else who may not even be drafted by the team. That's just where Solomon Thomas stands. Now, do I think he's a bust? I mean, here we are, right? 4 years in. I think he was put in a tough position. I really do. When you look at his measurables coming out of college, I mean, it was through the roof. Now, the thing was, we were all projecting what he might be. And looking back, he brought the passion, the dedication, the discipline, all that, right? He checked all the boxes, right? The term that's thrown out here on draft day. But when you really look at what he has done, it's kind of like you learning a new position when you go to a new tech firm. First year in sales, but then you also have to learn the marketing side. And then from marketing side, now you have to learn tech sales again. And then it's like going back and forth, saying it's very difficult for a young player to develop when you're solely focused on multiple roles instead of focusing on one. Now, to his credit, he should be playing a lot better than what he's been producing. Don't get it twisted. But at the end of the day, I mean, I can see why some would say he's playing out of position, and maybe a fresh start is in order for both 49ers and Solomon Thomas for him to have future success. So my hat's off to Solomon Thomas. Worked with him over the years. Great guy, great person. I really wish him all the best.
And the funny part is, like, during that draft, I was actually at Levi Stadium for their draft party. And when the Bears traded with the Niners, I was like, oh, this is awesome. We're probably going to get someone like Patrick Mahomes. This is great, right? Because once they picked Mitch Trubisky, we're like, yeah, it's going to be Watson in the house or Patrick Mahomes. And then now Solomon Thomas, there was a big, like, what? Boo! It was like New York all over again. So,
dude, I love going on freaking live, dude. This is the first time for
this is fun. Yeah, I love all the questions coming in. It's awesome. Definitely changing the way we envision the show. So, which is great.
I told Barry before we going on, I was like, dude, I'm just gonna do it. And then he's like, okay, are you sure? I was like, I don't know, man, but we're just gonna go for it. And here we are, and I love it. I think I might do live every single day now. I think
live is good.
The engagement's great. I love. One thing you guys know about me is anyone who is, I call it family. You're part of the BEASTwriter family for supporting me, the love and support, for supporting Jerry. And like literally when you hear your family, no voice is left unheard. Like everybody has a voice. To say like one person has a better, just because I have the platform, it don't mean anything. Now that I'm out verified, we all in the same boat anyway. But even before that,
he's one of us.
Get me verified, Twitter. I'm gonna put a tweet out. You guys need to get me verified. We'll tag them. And hey, but no, real talk. Even if I was verified, not verified, even before I was verified, I always kept it 100, and I really appreciate the love and support. Thank you. So yeah, I think I'm gonna continue doing these lives.
And leave a like button if you guys like the show, right? If you guys like the show, leave a like button on this, and we'll keep doing it. Or BEASTwriter will keep doing it. I'll destroy it once a week.
So we're getting such good feedback, man.
Yeah, I love it. Let's keep going through it. Let's keep going through the questions. I think that's
all right. So here we go. Let's go to Jonathan. Let's get Jonathan. You are awesome.
Jonathan's the man. That guy.
All right,
he's asking all the good questions and good feedback. So
all right. So 49ers Ultimate Report says, I hope Jason Verrett is resigned. So do we. Right? Would you agree with that?
I agree. Okay. I think we have to. We need one veteran cornerback. Sherman's not coming back. Sherman, I think, is probably going to the Raiders. That's my best guess. But without
why would go to the Raiders? Why would you go to the Raiders, Richard Sherman?
He's going to the Raiders for the money, buddy.
I know. Hey, tax break, right? Isn't there a tax break in Vegas?
There's a tax break in Vegas, and John Gruden's there. That's his homie, and I'll see. I think it's a good fit for him. Honestly.
All right, so let's get back to Bay Area Baller 18. Bay Area Baller 18. I love that handle. Keep that handle.
Yeah, love it.
You're the baller, bro. So he says Tart or Juice. Who do you keep? All right, so I'll start off. I'm gonna go ahead and say keep Juice. For all of you who followed me on Twitter, you know that Juice was my dark horse MVP last year in the Super Bowl, and he almost got it if they would have won. He almost scored twice, and everyone was like, "Oh my gosh, that's crazy! How did you predict that?" And then I was like, "Dude, that's crazy, dude." Because I had to go on ESPN radio, and they asked me, "Who's your MVP?" I was like, "I have a dark horse MVP. It's gonna be Kyle Juszczyk." And they're looking at me like, "Really?" I was like, "Yeah, this is why." And I was like breaking down wheel routes, how they're gonna use them, and ultimately it played out. Maybe because I had some inside information. No, I'm joking. I didn't have any information, but that was really interesting. I think they keep Kyle Juszczyk simply because of the fact he does so much and opens up that playbook that you really can't find. Now it comes down to how much are they going to use Kyle Juszczyk in order to make sense of that big money contract. That's where the scripting comes into play because the fullback has become obsolete, just like the running back is slowly becoming obsolete. Like it's not a big position anymore. But you still need a fullback at the end of the day to win those short yardage situations and keep the chains moving. And if you're going to keep a good defense or a good offense off the football field, on like a Pat Mahomes, you really need to extend the chains and win time of possession. So Kyle Juszczyk, I hope he resign in San Francisco. If not, again, great guy, great person.
Who do you think he signs with if he does leave? My guess is probably Baltimore. I think Baltimore uses a running back system or fullback system as well, right? But yeah, I agree with you. I think he's a key piece. I think not only as a fullback blocker, he's a good pass catcher as well. He opens up the field for us a little bit on those trick plays that Kyle likes to run.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, so let's go ahead and talk to some of these other fans on here. It says Jonathan asks, Salah will grab Akilo, Tart, and Hyder. Do you think that's true?
I wouldn't be surprised, right? Especially Hyder. I think Hyder for sure is going there. Akilo, maybe. I don't know about Akilo because he was in the doghouse with the Niners, and ultimately I think that was Salah's choice to bench him. So I don't know if he's high on Akilo, but Tart and Hyder, out of the three, I would say Hyder first, and then Tart, and then Akilo is on far third on chances of being picked up by the Jets.
Right. I think Hyder Jr. is definitely going to be one of those players who's not going to be able to be retained by San Francisco simply because I think he's going to command too much money and he deserves it. So Kerry Hyder Jr. had one hell of a contract year and he's going to get paid somewhere else.
Is this too bad, right? Because well, before we go off of it, if we didn't have the D4 contract, I think we could have signed Hyder, right? Because essentially that's the money that we could have given Hyder, and he'll be a lot healthier. He'll be a difference maker as well. So I don't know if you have any updates on the D4 contract. Do you think we have any chances of getting out of that? I know June 1st is kind of the date that we have to look at, right? But you think they get out?
It's going to be interesting, man. It's going to be interesting. But I'd say wipe your hands. I don't care. Just get rid of the dead weight.
Get rid of them, yeah.
Just get rid of them. It's like a person who invests so much time in a toxic relationship, and you're just with that person because it's been longevity. Get out of
Yeah.
that relationship,
He
bro.
hasn't even played
Five
that much
left,
when
bro.
he
Move
was
on.
healthy, right? Like,
Huh?
think of 2019, he didn't play every snap as well. He played like 25% of the snaps
He's a
in
situational.
2019
Yeah.
when we were good, right? So, like, are we really gonna pay that much money? I think the biggest thing is we have to make sure he's healthy. If he's not
Right.
healthy, we cut him. We get hit with like injury settlement, right? So that's going to be a key. So I think we just have to monitor his progress on injuries, and then I think if he's healthy by June 1st, he's gone.
Right. All right. Let's talk about what the 49ers should do with the number 12 overall pick. I'm going to go ahead and let you lead this conversation, and then I'll chime in and piggyback on your analysis because I know you have good stuff to say.
I actually don't have that great analysis on this draft pick. No, I'm just kidding.
That's horrible, Jerry.
No, I think for number 12 pick, it's going to be tough, right? I think Kyle Pitts is a guy that I look at that potentially could be the guy we pick up, especially if we don't, re-sign, God, name's slipping me. Everyone's probably going to, yeah, Jordan Reed, right? I think it's a good Jordan Reed replacement there, and I like what he does on the field. Like a lot of what he does is similar to what we wanted Jordan Reed to do, and he pass catches. I think the biggest knock on Kyle Pitts was blocking. He's not a blocking tight end, but who cares, right? I think with Kyle's scheme, I don't think you really necessarily need a great blocker, and we have Charles Warner if we need blocking.
He's horrible.
Hey, he's a blocking tight end. If people want
block,
ends, that's the guy.
I'm joking. I'm joking. I'm joking, guys. Everybody knows that.
All the Warner lovers out there, please speak up.
Yeah.
No, I think Kyle Pitts, though, number 12, seems really realistic to me. And we're gonna look for cornerbacks. I think Trey Lance or Mac Jones might be a guy we can consider as a backup. Right. So Mac Jones, I actually like him a lot. I think he's not athletic and he gets knocked on. Yeah. You're Crimson Tide fan there, right? So but I think he gets knocked a lot because he's in a really good college team and people think that it's a system that's bringing him up and all this stuff. But I think he has a lot of talent there. And I think if you compare him to Tua, I think he's better than Tua, right? I think statistically looking at his stats, I don't have it in front of me there, but when I looked it up, he had way better stats. His highlights were great. And then I think for Trey Lance as well, right? I think that's a pretty potential number 12 pick too. So if we're going QB, realistically, those are only two guys I think we can get, right? I don't think Zach Wilson will be available. Justin Fields will be gone. If Justin Fields is there at 12, he's a good value pick, right? I wouldn't clown that pick at all, but I just don't think he'll be picked up. I think he'll be way gone by number 12. And I don't think we should trade the pick. I think we need this draft capital. If anything, we trade down, right? And try to get, like we said, John Lynch is not good in the first 2 rounds of the draft. So maybe more picks in the 3rd and beyond is what we need. But no, for talent alone, though, I think those are my top 3, right? Mac Jones, Trey Lance, and Kyle Pitts. And I know people think it's crazy that a tight end might come to the Niners, but the talent speaks for itself, right? So I think it's a good value pick there at 12.
I think you make a great point. A lot of people are high on Kyle Pitts. A guy who is in the back of my mind right now is Alec Faulkner, who's one of my loyal followers on YouTube. He is the one that said, "Oh man, Kyle Pitts is the real deal." And I always look back because for me, that guy was Vernon Davis at tight end, right? If we're talking about a tight end top 10 pick, who's a surefire top 10 pick, for me, it was Vernon Davis. 4.3 speed, had a 40-inch vertical.
But no hands, man. No hands. That was a knock on Vernon Davis, right? He had no hands. Like, look at his catches. His catches were ugly, bro.
He had some great years in San Francisco, and arguably, statistically, I believe he's the second best tight end ever, right? Behind George Kittle. So
sadly,
what you want.
It's a sad stat, man.
What you want. Vernon Davis got it done, made it to Pro Bowls, and did really well under so many different offensive coordinators throughout the years and still put up big numbers. Now, going back to what the 49ers should do at number 12, I think it's a catch-22 because for me, if I'm GM John Lynch, I'm going to look at it from a perspective of, okay, what are we doing in free agency first in order to solidify what we're going to do in the draft, right? So you obviously pick the missing parts in free agency and then build through the draft. And then obviously the complementary role pieces you can find thereafter. But what they choose to do free agency is going to be huge because, like you said, do they roll with left tackle Trent Williams? And if they're unable to sign left tackle Trent Williams, now there's a game of musical chairs. You're not going to move right tackle Mike McGlinchey over to the left side. And the reason you don't do that is because Kyle Shanahan already said that. He said that right tackle Mike McGlinchey is a right tackle, and we're not going to shift. Okay, cool story. Okay, fine. So he's a right tackle. What makes you think at this stage that they're not going to reach for an offensive lineman? If Rashawn Slater is off the board, because Penei Sewell is obviously going inside the top 5, I currently have him mocked to the Cincinnati Bengals at number 5 to give Joe Burrow some help, team him up with Jonah Williams, and they have 2 anchor at offensive tackles moving forward. But getting back to what we're specifically talking about as it pertains to the 49ers, the 12th position that they're picking at, there's so many different ways that they can play this because as the draft board currently stands, and I'm looking at it, right?
Yeah.
Their needs are quarterback, running back, offensive lineman, edge, outside linebacker, cornerback, and strong safety. Now,
They say everything.
Right. Almost everything, right? I mean, you're pretty much set at wide receiver, tight end, but if it was me, I would trade back, and you guys can catch this on my earlier podcast. You guys already know what I'm about to say. Trade back into the late teens, right? Maybe 18, 17, maybe ahead of the Miami Dolphins, because I currently have Najee Harris ranked number 4 on my big board. He would be a smart play by trading back, keep that guy in the Bay Area, get your 1,000-yard rusher that hasn't been seen since Frank Gore left in 2014, get your bell cow, get your workhorse, reliable, durable running back that you can win with, and at the very least produce 1,200 rushing yards year in and year out. Because what you're doing when you roll with a guy like Raheem Mostert, Matt Breida, whoever the running back is behind the quarterback, is you're doing yourself a disservice because those guys have shown time and time again that they're not able to sustain a full 16-game schedule. This running back by committee approach only works if you can have a 2-headed monster that can sustain a full 16-game schedule. Now you take it a step further and peel back another layer of onion to really get to the core. Let's talk about Jeff Wilson, right? Add him into the equation. By not having something stable in, especially when it comes to the running back position under Kyle Shanahan's offense, you're really doing yourself a disservice because the offensive linemen, you got to think about them. They build a rapport with that running back. So if they know based on their reach block or whatever blocking assignment they have, that they're going to leverage their block and technique one way, knowing that whoever that running back is, I know, okay, Najee Harris is back here. I know I can cheat this way a little bit, let that guy pass, and then I can hit up the second level and block that second guy because I know Najee Harris is going to make this guy miss. That's something that people don't really talk about is the rapport between the offensive lineman and the running back. When you have moving parts with these running backs, it really makes it difficult to build any type of rapport long-term. So that's why I say Najee Harris will be a smart play by moving back a few spots and selecting him with whatever pick that is before the Miami Dolphins pick at 18.
Do you think the Miami Dolphins will pick up Najee Harris though? I mean, Tua wants to play with him, right? So
Yeah. Dude,
yeah.
think about it. The Dolphins, right, as the draft board currently stands, right? They hold the number 3 overall pick, right? Or so the Miami Dolphins.
They're number 3. Yeah.
Right. So they hold the number 3 overall pick. I have them selecting Devontae Smith there, right? And then at number 18, I have them getting Najee Harris. So you get the Alabama trio back in the fold. It's very similar to how Jimmy Johnson built up the Dallas Cowboys in the early 90s in terms of getting Troy Aikman, Michael Irvin, and Emmitt Smith, right? With all the draft capital, right? He drafted Aikman out of UCLA. I believe it was 89 or something, right? Then he drafted Michael Irvin, right, out of the University of Miami. He drafted, right, Emmitt Smith out of the University of Florida. So same exact deja vu moment can play out in Miami, and ironically, it's in the NFC East. So
yeah,
I like it. I mean, I hope it happens. So I'm right. I'm like, yes.
Hey, if it doesn't happen, I think if Miami doesn't pick him up, I feel like the Falcons will pick him up at number 4. Right. So I think those are 2 possible landing spots for him.
You think Najee Harris will go to number 4 to the Atlanta Falcons?
He could. If Dolphins don't do it, what if they go crazy and decides to get Zach Wilson or something, right? I don't know.
It's gonna be interesting, bro. It's going to
Yeah.
be interesting for sure. But
And
no,
free
let's.
agency opens in March 7th or March 17th. So I think in 2 weeks or so, we can start seeing a lot more contracts getting signed and getting solidified, right? So that should be pretty interesting.
All right, let's get it. Should the 49ers sign Frank Gore next season? I'm gonna let you take that.
No, I don't think so. I think we'll sign him to maybe a 1-day contract just to say, hey, he's retired as a Niner. But I just don't think he has much left in the tank after this, right? And we have a lot of depth, I think, on the running back spot. Actually, we have Mostert there. We have Jeff Wilson, and then behind him we have what was that one kid? Keep forgetting that dude's name, but we have another player on there that played this season. So I just don't see a place for Frank Gore there, right? Hasty, that's the name I was thinking of. Hasty, right? So we have Hasty there. I think we already have some depth in the running back spot, and we're gonna look at other players. Adrian Peterson's out there. There's a few other options I think we can look at. Right, and if that Vikings trade goes through, maybe Alexander Madison, right? I know we didn't really touch upon that, but I think there was some rumors around the Vikings doing a 3-way trade, right? But
Right.
I just don't think Frank Gore fits our system. Unfortunately, I love the guy, right? I think he's all-time great, and he was a great Niner when he was here. I just don't see him having a place with the Niners.
All right, well, that's pretty much it, man. Thank you for tuning in. Do you have anything else you want to talk about before we wrap it up? I know you got to get going, so.
Yeah, no, it was fun. Thank you for having me on the show. Follow me on Mind of Jerry 11, and I do run a weekly podcast called the MJ Sportscast. We're on iTunes and Spotify, so make sure to tune in. And this was great, Ryan. Thanks for having me on, and I think I'm looking forward for whenever you get me back on again.
Oh no, absolutely, man. Thank you for joining on the show and hopping on the show. We're gonna have his co-host Mike Tang.
Yeah.
On Thursday, so it'd be really fun. They co-host the show, so you guys can actually hear what they have to say. The reason why I'm doing it this way is because I wanted to give individually their voice heard more, and more time, I guess. So, thank you for tuning in, man.
One thing I'll say is I'm more of the emotional guy, more of the spectator, the fan guy. Mike is more of the stat guy, right? So that's why when you see me struggling with stats, that's why, dude. And that's where BEASTwriter, I think, filled in for this show on all the stats. But Mike, he's more analytical. He's the guy that crunches all the numbers, look at the stats. I'm more of the look at the social media trends, look at fans, look at GM move behavior, and more of the emotional guy, right? You can tell I'm like very emotional when it comes to a lot of these players and teams and stuff. So
all right, well, that'll be it, guys. I hope you liked what we had to say. If you did, please hit the subscribe button in the lower right hand corner of your screen. Also, I'll be doing more of these live chats. I don't know how I'm going to set it up, but we are going to do it. Thank you for tuning in. BEASTwriter and Jerry, we are out. Peace.